Brad's good? Brad's good. Brenda's good? All right, I have 5 p.m. Attention, please. We will be starting the Richland County Executive and Finance Standing Committee. Today is June 23rd. Roll call, please.
Harrow. Here. Henning.
Here.
Hill.
Here.
Westbrunner. Woodhouse.
Here.
Turk.
Here.
Frank. Williamson.
Here.
Cooey.
Here. Please note in the minutes that we have a quorum.
That's 7 for a quorum.
Verification of open meeting law compliance. All right, item number 4, agenda. We're going to move some items on the agenda so people don't have to move out to the closed session and move back in. We'll be moving 8, 9, and 10 down towards the end, right above 14, and moving 10, 11, and 12 up. So again, we'll be moving, and 13, yeah. 11, 12, and 13 will be moved up. 8, 9, and 10 will be moved down after the other ones. So, motion by Manning with the amendment to the agenda. Everybody understand it? Seconded by Woodhouse. Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? All right. Moving on to item 5, approval of minutes from the June 10th, 2025 minutes. 2025 minutes meeting. Anybody have any corrections, concerns, changes? If not, I will declare them approved as presented. Item 6, public comment. Remember, public comment is limited to 3 minutes. It is limited to anything that is on the agenda as posted. Anybody from the public that would like to make a comment? Yes, sir. State your name.
My name is Raphael Lamort. I am a member of the EMS department. I've come to just speak on behalf of some of our service members in regards to events that occurred last Friday. With those events, there was a extensive loss of advocacy for our service.
Can I stop you for a minute? Can you hear him, Steve? Can you speak louder, please?
On behalf of the situation that occurred last Friday, there was a loss of advocacy that we feel for the service and for the community in regards to that. We had never had an advocacy for our department in many, many years. And what occurred on Friday is a loss to our service. Secondary, we asked the board that moving forward today and any other decision-making process towards leadership, that the EMS service members are consulted with any form of a leader appointed, any appointership of leadership moving forward. And lastly, we just ask as a service that there be a sense of awareness of the lack of respect and appreciation that EMS members feel as a service, and that we hope that the board will take that into consideration.
Thank you. Thank you guys for your service, every one of you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from your group that wants to speak? Anybody else from the public within the building here?
He is a member of the public or department head. Jennifer Harper, I'm the district attorney.
If you want to speak within the public, you're not on the agenda as a department head.
That is
You
true.
can as a public.
Sure, although there is an issue that impacts my department. And that would be the agenda item related to the corporation council structure. I just want to make sure that when we start considering whether or not to have a one in-house corporation counsel versus having an outside law firm with the part-time assistant corporation counsel in my office, who I don't believe is contracted, although that's indicated in here, that has a deleterious effect on my office and public safety. My office has a 0.8 assistant district attorney and a 0.2 assistant corporation counsel. That structure was set up in 1988 for a very specific reason. It was so that my office could both recruit and retain a qualified attorney to come to Richland County and act as an assistant district attorney. And that was a decision that was made, I think I did the math, it's almost 40 years ago. Because even 40 years ago, we recognized that not a lot of people want to move to Richland County for an 80% job. And in fact, people could stay in Madison, come out to Richland County for an 80% job. And as soon as they got a better gig, they could boot, scoot, and boogie to some other jurisdiction. So it was set up so that there was one full-time job, essentially, partly for the state and partly for the county. And that's how we've been able to have assistant district attorneys / assistant corporation counsel consistently in my office for the last 40 years, including me. In 2000, I started here as an assistant district attorney and an assistant corporation counsel because I could have a full-time job here. And after I left, Amy Forehand became the 80% assistant DA and the 20% assistant corporation counsel. And she's been here now for, what's the math, 23 years working for the county. If we change the structure from, and I understand there are pros and cons to both, but I want to make sure that we understand that by cutting the assistant corporation counsel assistant out of my office, you're functionally cutting 20% out of my office, giving Amy a 20% pay cut. And she's worked for this county for 23 years as the assistant corporation counsel and has made it vastly more difficult for me to be able to retain her. I'd go if this board cut my job by 20% after I'd been here for 20 years, and then very difficult to recruit. Across the state, there's much difficulty recruiting assistant DAs, even for full-time positions. Most notably and most closely is Vernon County, who has had their assistant DA positions open for months and months. And then they hire someone for a little bit of time. I'll get my 3 minutes in for a little bit of time. And then they find, hey, I don't want to live in Brookline, I want to live in La Crosse. So now the assistant has gone to go to La Crosse. I would anticipate the same thing would happen here, although I don't think people would come here as readily for an 80% job and are far more likely just to go back to Madison. So I also think that there are some other issues with.
Yeah, we'll take that all into consideration when we start to get, I mean, it was brought up last year. We started discussing it a little bit. And definitely we'll take that all into consideration. Thank you, Jennifer. Anyone else? Play online? All right. So let's go on to reports. Our administrator report, item 7A.
As far as the administrator report, I really don't have a lot. We just had a meeting last week on Tuesday, and I gave you an update at the full county board, so I don't have anything there.
Okay, radio tower.
So I did put into the packet the timeline that GenCom did provide to us. We are having a meeting with Mike Day tomorrow because this timeline pushes it out quite a ways to completion. And so we're going to have a conversation with Mike Day, who's the project manager, and I guess provide some other suggestions to GenCom moving forward. But I wanted to share with you what was provided to us.
Mr. Carroll.
Have we reviewed our contract, see if we have recourse, require them to do overtime and do extra things to recover schedule?
I will check on that. I have not. I will do that.
Hopefully we do. Contracts normally have that kind of clause.
Any other questions in regards to the administrative report or the radio tower? Mr. Carroll.
Based on this current completion, do we have a handle on what costs are added to our project in terms of interest or any other deadline issues?
So because we didn't finish within the first year, any interest that we're earning, we do have to return when the project is completed. As far as like being within the budget, we continue to remain within the budget, and there still is a healthy contingency budget left still. So they don't feel that we will go.
Thank you.
Nobody else's questions? All right, let's move on to our new item number 8, which will become the discussion and possible action on approval of pharmacy services for Pine Valley Community Village. Brittany.
Yes. So as you guys are aware, our pharmacy contract is up this year and we're in need of a new pharmacy provider. So we did get a few bids. based off the information and the bids. I did have Mike Wendell review all contracts to verify that everything was appropriate. All of them are appropriate, and with the verbiage that he likes to see. With consideration, there is one pharmacy that is cheaper, and provides everything that we need, and that would be Health Direct Pharmacy. It is associated with Leading Age, and that is something that kind of the facility is in agreement with cost and with everything else. So I'm just here for approval to be able to move forward as for our pharmacy is not it's up in the air right now with the current pharmacy.
And they would start January 1?
No, they would start within 60 days.
60 days, okay. Was it correct that our current, correct me if I'm wrong, but did they file chapter?
Yeah.
Current pharmacy?
Yes, and their current consult pharmacist is the one that kind of informed me that they weren't paying their distributors and they weren't paying some of their employees, so he had a lot of worries of his own. And obviously that kind of had me looking into it and Wendell looking into it as well.
Questions to Brittany? Otherwise, well, yeah, go ahead, Steve.
I would ask that get an actual written report from you giving your assessment and recommendation.
All of the bids are associated with you guys. It'll go through the cost and breakdown of everything, but just to kind of save you some time, based off of what we reviewed as well as Mike Wendell and myself and the staff, we met with each one, kind of asked our questions, and basically, essentially, we need a pharmacy that's going to be able to provide a consult pharmacist. Current pharmacy is kind of hit or miss, not attending our coffee that we need. So basically, when it breaks down, we have two pharmacies that could provide everything, and that would be the Guardian Pharmacy, and then the Health Direct. But when you break down the cost, the Health Direct is the most cost saving.
And if you could just put that briefly in some short report,
Sure.
so it's in the record.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I sure can.
What's that?
How does the Health Direct cost relate to what we're paying currently?
So packaging wise, we pay packaging no matter what for every service. A lot of our Medicare reimburse us for all the pharmacy for our Medicare A patients. They bill the insurance companies for everything else. We pay consult pharmacists for them to review our medication regimen review for our annuals, our quarterlies, as well as our psychotropics reviews. And they're significantly lower. And they do it by per chart they review versus per hour. Guardian does per hour review. And then they're about, I think it was at least almost $5 cheaper per packaging, per roll. So it is a little bit cheaper. The cost of the beds is a little bit cheaper for review of the regimens.
So it sounds like you're saying we're getting better service for less
Correct.
cost, basically.
And a lot of more in-service opportunities for our staff. They can do IV certifications, those sorts of things that, you know, our current pharmacy is not able to provide us.
Great, thanks.
Nice. Any other questions for Brittany in regards to the Health Direct Pharmacy request?
Have you,
Go ahead.
have you done any benchmarking with other similar facilities in the area?
Yes.
What kind of services they use?
I've used Guardian in the past and I loved their services previously. Again, there was some trial and error. Health Direct is actually with Leading Age, what we are partnered with, which kind of vets out like bad pharmacies. So we did have a conversation with Omnicare only to find out they had a $436 million lawsuit against them for false billing. So we do have a lot of vetting that we do going into this, but Leading Age is one of the trusted people that we deal with long-term care. And when they say they vetted their pharmacies, we believe them because they go through extensiveness. And then medical director, our current one, Dr. Sadhu, has worked with Health Direct and does recommend the services.
And do you have that in writing?
Dr.
Any of
Sadhu,
those recommendations? Yes.
I can definitely have him reach out
Could
and
you
do
include
that
that as part of
recommendation.
your just
And then-
summary to us?
yeah, absolutely.
Great, thank you.
That way we'll have it for full county board. It'd be just kind of like an agenda all the bids but it's hard to compare because there's, yeah, like you say, there's stuff that
There's a lot of things.
we
that
won't
go with
understand.
Yeah.
What our pharmacy requirements, the regs, federal and state requirements tell us that we need to have. So we just kind of, you know, they can give the extra bells and whistles without additional cost. We're like, yes, it's just that extra oversight, that extra, you know, things that we utilize that maybe sometimes we don't even think about.
Right, and I think that's part of the point is that there's a lot of pieces here, and it'd be hard for us to understand all of that, so, yeah, thank you.
Absolutely.
Perfect. I suppose we need this,
Motion, I'll make the motion.
motion by, and seconded by Gil to take Brittany's recommendation of Health Direct to become their new pharmacy provider. Any other discussions? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, thank you for that. Next item is the discussion and possible action on our next steps on the water study for Pine Valley Community Village. Dad, are you taking that, you and Bart?
Bart, nice here. All right, good evening, everyone. How we doing?
Bart, let them know who you are, please.
I will, as soon as I hand everything out here. So I'm Bart Nice, owner of Delta 3 Engineering out of Platteville. Handing out an updated form, some information. Trish put it in the packets. I've updated it since then. Trish, I'll explain that in a minute. We're working with Pine Valley Community Village regarding their water system study. And one of the requirements for the DNR is if it goes further, is we have to do what's called a engineering report. That meat and potatoes of the engineering report are basically what I've got put out here in front of you. There's many more pieces that go with that. But typically most clients want to know where it's going to be and what's it going to cost. Plain and simple. So what we're doing is kind of a two-phase approach. That's how our contract was, our proposal with the county. Phase one is kind of get the meat and potatoes in front of you, see how you want to proceed. Phase two is basically put all the filler in the report and all the stuff the DNR needs to see and submit it. The current reservoir is, can we go back to the drawing? You down or up? Yes. No,
Other way.
Keep going. The current reservoir is here. It's about 4,400 feet from Pine Valley Community Village. That current reservoir is about 40,000 gallons. That's the storage capacity. It's about 75 years old. It currently has concrete spalling, exposed rebar on the inside of the concrete structure. It does not have adequate capacity for fire protection and daily usage of the facility. There's no electricity at the site. Right now, any controls are run by batteries, and the operator, Chad, has issues at least once a month with that. It has an existing well with 3 booster pumps located right here. The well pumps the water up to the reservoir. The reservoir gravity drains back to the facility to feed the facility. So you have roughly 4,400 feet, 2,250 feet going one way, 2,250 feet going back. That water main potentially is contributing to some water quality issues right now, but that's also just as old as the reservoir. The current facility has about 96 beds and about 50 staff members for every shift. On the handouts I gave you, we allocated or we analyzed 5 different options. I'm going to go through each one of them. Certainly feel free to interrupt me if you have questions. So first of all, for the usage, assuming that the Pine Valley Community Village does not have any growth for the next 20 years, which according to staff, they don't anticipate it. The minimum capacity needed, again, keep in mind you have a 40,000 gallon tank now. Minimum capacity needed is roughly 70,000 gallons. And that's to satisfy 2-hour fire flow, which is state code at 500 gallons per minute, plus the usage of about 10,000 gallons a day, which is the standard daily use for the last 3 years of the facility. So we need a 70,000 gallon storage unit to put the water in for 1 day's worth of usage. One of the options, I'm gonna go to option 3 first, is to simply drain the tower, drain the reservoir, and go in and hire someone to repair the cracks, repair the rebar, take care of the concrete. Very inexpensive, $3,400, but you're still gonna have a 75-year-old facility. Go ahead, sir.
I didn't see an inspection report on the tank.
There was an inspection report done in 2022 or 23 that your staff has. I don't have it with my stuff. I didn't do the inspection.
But you would have looked at that.
Yep. So I came up with this.
Okay.
So again, rather inexpensive, but again, that's something that you're probably gonna have to maintain every couple years, for sure, every 5 years when they do their inspection. And you still have a 75-year-old facility plus going forward. If you're to replace the water mains, that 4,350 feet going out to and coming back from, if you look at the bottom of the sheet I handed out, this is one of the things I added, Trish. To replace that water main and the electrical controls that have come up, Chad told me about a couple of weeks ago, you're gonna add about $735,000 to it. Okay? Now, do you need to do that? That's anyone's opinion. He's having issues with it now. They've also had some murky water, darker water, potentially the inside of the pipes, that stuff is falling apart, coming off, getting in the water. Option 1. If you get rid of the reservoir, discontinue the reservoir, get rid of the current private system at Pine Valley Community Village and connect on to the city of Richland Center. They are recommending a 12-inch main coming down. My map again. They're recommending a 12-inch main coming down all the way to the facility. I'll go through that in a little bit. The capital costs are that about $825,000. The only difference between option 1 and 2 is that by calculation, again, no design has been done yet, ladies and gentlemen, but by calculation, you wouldn't need 12-inch main the whole way. Once you get to county RC, you could go with 8-inch main from here to the facility. That's gonna save you about $100,000. Again, both those options, 1 and 2, get rid of your private system, no need for your well, no need for your reservoir, you connect to the city of Richland Center. Keep in mind,
Bart, so what happens when Richland Center water fails? We have no, what do we have for backup?
you have no backup besides what they would provide. Right now, your facility averages somewhere around 75 to 90 pounds of pressure. If you eliminated your system and went with their system on the 12-inch main, you'd have about 63 pounds. If you went with the 12-inch plus the 8-inch, you'd have roughly 60 pounds, okay? Still adequate, still meets code, but you're losing about 15 to 20 pounds of pressure, okay? Option 4, when we met with staff, we originally, go back to the map.
Sorry.
Just keep the map up, please. Hang up. Option 4 and 5 is to replace this facility at the location. But staff indicated that they'd want to put it down closer to the facility to eliminate that exorbitant length of pipe. Again, 2,200 feet that way, 2,200 feet back. So if you were to replace the reservoir and put it somewhere here up in the northwest corner of the property, obviously much less length of pipe. The structure itself is the same, whether it's here, there, or anywhere. The downside is preliminarily, again, no design's been done, no surveying, but there's roughly 70 feet of elevation difference from here to here. And that equates to about 30 pounds of pressure. So right now, if you have roughly, what I say, 75 pounds of pressure, you'd be down in the 45 to 60 pound range. Now, obviously, if you go ahead with this and ask us to continue, we would actually do the survey and come up with those exact numbers. But just preliminarily, one negative side to not replacing it where the structure is now is you're gonna lose 20 pounds, 30 pounds of pressure. Again, still satisfies code. It's just that water's not gonna come out of the sink as fast as it does now. The other items from what you have in your packets that has changed is that we had to add in the pipe and the controls to the new site, if that is the new site. And so in your packets, option 4 and 5 capital costs are less than what I've handed out. What we simply added was roughly 350,000 or so for that pipe and those electrical controls. The staff had recommended or preferred option 5. Let me back up. Option 4 is simply getting rid of your tower, your reservoir, and putting in a short water tower. So basically it's a short, fatter water tower. And that's fine, but the problem is that the maintenance on that is much more than a concrete tank, because about every 20 years you have to blast and or paint that tower. Whereas a concrete tank, you don't have to. Okay, and that's reflected in subcategories under the table and in the O&M costs. Option 5, the only difference is instead of the short fat tower, you put in an above ground concrete tank. And you cover it. And again, whether you set it here or here, it'd still be the same size, 70,000 gallon approximately concrete tank, but now you have less O&M. You have at least about the same pressure you'd have coming from the city, and potentially less costs. You would still own and maintain your own system. It would take care of replacing the electrical system that you don't have, and you would eliminate about half the length of pipe. Yes, sir.
You replaced the tank in that same location with a new tank, which is option 5.
Yeah, 4 or 5.
Why go with concrete? Why not steel?
Because steel corrodes.
Understood, but the total life cycle cost may still be better.
It isn't because of cathodic protection. Puts cathodic protection in the steel tank. Water towers have cathodic protection. That costs about $50,000, $30,000 to $50,000 to put in initially. You have to certify it every 2 years, which costs money. And then it usually gets replaced about every 30 years. You have none of that concrete tank. So not for this project, but for the other ones that I have worked on in the last 32 years, we've done a cost analysis of concrete tanks. Typically always prove more cost effective than a steel. But I certainly can look into that. It just, that's initially from my experience that was about. Yes, sir.
It's there now and below ground, correct?
Yes, it's underground. I wouldn't say it's below ground, but it's,
None of the options here would be below ground again?
no.
Why is that? I mean, that one lasted quite a while, and it does keep your water.
Well, if we were to put the tank back at the current site, then yes, we would have part of it under the ground. It's just a matter of, again, keep in mind, I have no surveying data at all, okay? We're simply going 2D, 2-dimensional. Horizontally, location, all that type of stuff we would figure out. But whether the tank is partially underground, completely underground, or completely above ground, the costs are gonna be more or less the same.
Right.
Because it's all concrete piping. Yes, sir.
For the two options where we use city water, what did you use for the rate for water from the city?
So say that again, sir.
The charge for the water from the city.
$10,729 roughly per year. That's in the annual O&M cost. So that's what estimated what the county would be paying the city for your water use.
That's the meter rate.
Yep.
Thank you.
So as you can see, just by the numbers, if you decide to move the location and you decide to do a similar tank that you have now, whether it's underground or above ground, you're real close to price to connecting onto the city. I would not get caught up, guys, whether this is 800,000 versus 820. What's important is it's not 8 million versus 800,000. Okay, that's the lack of specificity at this point. Okay, the design plans, the design of the project will start narrowing that down, and I would bring back more accurate cost estimates at that time. The biggest thing that's changed from what you have in your package, bless you, compared to this is simply having to replace that main that's currently there and actually getting an electrical system that works. I didn't want to show you $475,000 tonight and come back a month from now and say, oh, by the way, since I was coming tonight, I wanted to get an update of this.
So Bart, what do you want or need from us tonight? What are you looking for?
Well, personally, $1 million would be great. However.
I'll write you a check outside.
Excellent. Or two chicken dinners, but apparently they're gone. Really, all I'm looking for tonight is if you guys as a group feel comfortable or confident or say, yeah, one of these options is how we want to go, and maybe Steve, a recommendation to the county board on which option of the 5 you want to proceed.
And I was kind of thinking about maybe looking at two of them a little bit longer and harder, but, all right, number one, how old is the well, Chad? You know, the well and well pump?
Well pump was pulled in. I haven't found many receipts on what they did to it. I mean, but they would have went through it in 2012.
So even a new well there, Bart, would be well and pump and plumbing, 20 grand more, 25?
Well,
If we were to, I mean, to me, if this was my personal property and I'm putting all this stuff in new, I'm putting in a new well and all the equipment.
if it was a residential well, 25 to 30,000. New well with a building is running probably close in that situation. You're probably looking at $750,000. We'll double this price.
So then that changes a lot of our thoughts, I think.
We're doing 6 wells right now throughout the Midwest, and they pretty much every one was between $1.5 million to $2.25 million. And that's a 24 by 24 building, so with the well drilled.
So we're saying not just a new, well, we're saying we think, what, the casing shot, or why would we need a new well?
I'm not saying you do. I think what Steve's saying is that eventually you would need one,
Yeah,
right?
it's not gonna last forever.
Right now, of all your water infrastructure at the community village, your well is the most new thing, or the most up to date. Your water mains are starting to fail, and your reservoirs.
So if we hook on with the city, we would virtually have no maintenance, it'd just be a monthly or a yearly charge, correct?
The only maintenance you would have is what's internal inside of your property, which again would be minimal.
Did they go from the road though? They probably, in town, they go from the road. Anything from the main to the building is be ours.
No, it's anything from where the curb stop is. In your case, it's gonna be a valve, so that valve would be set right at the right of way, and everything from that valve, which is the same as the property.
Yep.
Biggest thing is, do you guys as a group, as a county, do you feel like you're more apt to say, we want to get rid of all this extra maintenance and equipment and moving parts, and we want to make it easy and just connect to the city? Or do you not want to be governed by the city in the water system? There's another little tidbit to that. Brittany brought up a couple weeks ago that, I'm gonna screw this name up again, Britt, but Legionella disease. Apparently that facility, your facility, every quarter they have to test for that. And if they do any construction down at that site, they have to test for that to prove that water isn't contaminated for this Legionella disease. So if this Pine Valley Community Village was to hook to the city water system, does that mean every time the city does a construction project, no matter where it is, that Pine Valley has to test for Legionella disease?
We have to increase testing, yeah.
So
Every time the city does any construction to any of the water or sewer.
water or sewer.
We have to,
Anywhere
Yes.
near, yeah, because essentially what it can do is break off that Legionella from any of the piping, send it shoot down, and we use, some residents use humidifiers. It has caused, death. It's caused severe sickness. So a lot of times, the second construction happens, whether it's road construction, pipe construction, we have to increase our Legionella, and it's not a cheap test. We're looking at, what is it, each time you send it in, and you do yours monthly.
we do our monthly in-house. And when you send it out, it's like $1,000. And
So
if
even
you do, every time construction happens in Richland Center, it's it'd be at least $1,000.
But even if they're connecting in a water line on the
On both
northwest
sides of
side,
campus.
yep, then you still have to test them. But if they're just taking pavement off of a street, you wouldn't have to.
If it can jostle up any of those pipes,
I,
yes.
I suppose if they're taking anything off the street, yes.
Gotcha. So that's something to consider. That's something I was not aware of until they educated me about 3 weeks ago.
Are we chlorinating now out there, Chad?
Yep.
Okay.
Right now.
Thoughts, people? I mean, my thoughts are, I'd like to see more information on what did you use for an increased percent for the city rate?
Today's cost.
Today's cost.
Everything in 2025, I don't control what
Yep.
the raise. I don't control what the contractor is gonna charge next year. If I came back and this sat on the table for 3 years, I come back and guarantee the construction price are gonna be higher. But I'm not gonna tell you what percentage, because I control my businesses, I don't control theirs.
Well, wait, so when you present valued things, what all did you do then?
That's called an engineering economy calculation.
Understood, but you're saying you did not do that with the city water rates?
Yeah, no, everything's present value. And I'm not saying is, what's gonna be your water rates in 2030? I have no idea. I know today, this is what they would be if you were connected today, in 2025. But present value, annual worth, that's all taken into account, the engineering account, they're all analyzed the same way.
Mr. Gill?
Yeah, let's go back to the pressure. You say it's 75 to 90 pounds PSI, basically. Now, that's a 20% discrepancy. Does it vary that much, or why, where's that?
Whenever that, so the static pressure is all dictated by the level of the water in your reservoir. So if that goes down for every 2 feet, or every 0.31 feet per pound. So anytime that water goes down, that changes the pressure at the facility. Or once it gets filled back up, it changes the pressure. Again, this is all, it's all estimated, okay? Does it mean it fluctuates 15 to 20 pounds a day? No. But it means that it could be, if it's 0 water in the tank, it's this pressure. If the tank's full, it's this pressure. That's what it is.
And do we,
Call that Amish water pressure.
Mr. Severson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Terry Severson, County Board Supervisor for District 16. So District 16 line is on County Highway O. And if you're going up County Highway O and looking at Pine Valley, off to the left is my district. And off to the right is Mr. Gill's district. I also live on Highway 14. Right by RC Tacos, across from Quick Trip. So that nice water reservoir that's up there, I look at it every day. I see it a lot. I understand what that water reservoir is there for purpose, and I learned about that when it was installed and when it decided to be built, why it was needed. It's beneficial for that east side of town. My family, however, is not hooked up to anything related to city utilities. But I would look and encourage the county board. Either way, we need water out there, but if we're looking at future expansion of Richland Center and growth, and we look at attaching to city utilities for that water line, go out to Pine Valley, that just extends out future growth, Richland Center, because either housing, business are able to attach to city water if they were to go out on County Highway RC, County Highway O, to be able to build out there and have that infrastructure there. Whereas if somebody was to individually build, and they would have to pay for the well, looking at costs that cost quite a bit of money. It would be on the business owner to look into that and even get that out there. We're already using taxpayer funded dollars. And we're looking at, for our future growth, it might be worth a discussion to see what it would take to be on city water. Now, city hasn't been here. Steve Kruger or Scott Gall, Scott's the head of the city utilities. Steve Kruger's water superintendent. I'm sure that they have regular testing that is done with their water, and they have compliances that they gotta come on. The well for that side of town is right behind Philback, Goodwill in that area, so I'm sure there's some stuff, and I just wish that we could have further discussion on what it would be to have city water out that far and for future expansion if needed.
Thoughts, committee? We've got another meeting before the full county board, so in my opinion, we don't have to make a decision tonight, but I just want to see what other thoughts from everybody else is. Mr. Carroll?
As far as fire protection, we assume that tie-in point with the city system would provide the flow you need.
Yeah, so those pressures I gave you for options 1 or 2, roughly 60 pounds of pressure at 500 gallon per minute, which is the minimum code is 20 pounds of pressure at 500 gallon per minute. If you did option 1 through 2, you still have roughly 55 to 60.
I'm just saying, can it maintain that pressure for 2 hours? Like
Yes.
And then do we know if the balances system at Pine Valley can flow that much? In other words, has there ever been a flow test done? Apparently the place has been below requirements for years now.
Yeah, again, we haven't done any design or any surveying. I've simply taken our analysis based off back of the Bible, as they call it. And, but that's all stuff that we would do in the design phase to verify. Keep in mind, this is the very first step. You could either do nothing, say we're not gonna touch anything. You could say we're gonna go with these 5 options, or you could go with a hybrid or a totally different option. It won't offend you.
Keep in mind, it's gonna be at least 3 years before this project even actually hits the ground. So he's gonna be writing grants, which is where our proposed money is coming from. It's essentially him writing our grants for us. And
Plus the $1 million Steve's gonna write.
right, plus the $1 million Steve's writing. So, I mean, we have time, but essentially in order for him to get started, I would expect to, even next meeting, to have a decision made on the way to go, so we can at least start getting those grants, because our current option and what we currently have isn't going to last very long, and we're already seeing the things happen in the building that we need to fix. So we're gonna have, a couple of years yet. I'd like to at least get
A
started.
minimum of 3, possibly
Right.
3 years to put up with what we have.
And try to make.
Unfortunately, that's the word you have to use.
And we might have to do some patchwork in between, based off of what we're already currently seeing.
Filtering systems and who knows, but
Correct.
Bart, can you expand a little bit on the possibility of grants?
Yeah, so let me kind of give you the schedule first, if Brittany has a good segue. So schedule is if this group and the county board says, yeah, let's go ahead with option whatever. And in 2025, we submit the engineering report to the Public Service Commission and DNR group. And then in 26, we do the design and we submit the grant applications / loan applications. By the end of 26, we have those approvals and then construct the 27, fit it out 27, or the end of 26, construct the 27. Depending on the option, it could take a year to year and a half of construction. That's if in summer of 2025, Richland County Board says, yes, go ahead with X. In 2026, there are 3 grant programs that we could apply for. The best one is called the Community Development Block Grant. And that one, Richland County would have to be the applicant as the municipality. The advantage in this situation is that Pine Valley Community Village would be considered a limited clientele. If we had to do it based off of the county income, your county income is too high to automatically be eligible. So we'd have to do an income survey for everybody, every resident in the county of Richland. That's probably not gonna pass. The nice thing here again is because it's limited clientele, it's a specific type of service. It would just be that facility that we would have to apply for. I think you'd have a pretty good chance of getting monies, but keep in mind, it's a very competitive system. That's due May of every year. You find out at the end of July of every year, okay? The caveat is Richland County could not then apply for that same program, that same grant for any project in the county of Richland for 3 years. And that doesn't matter whether you're Richland Center, Village of Blue River, Richland County, any community cannot apply for 3 years after you're awarded a CDBG grant. You can get up to $1 million or up to 2/3 of the eligible costs. So the magic number is if you have a $1.5 million project, you're gonna max out the $1 million, because that's exactly 2/3, okay? If you have a $900,000 project, you can get $600,000 a grant. You don't pay it back, it's 100% grant. You would provide the matching fund, so again, in the situation, just say it's $1 million, you could get 667,333 is your guys's. The other one is the DNR Safe Drinking Water Program, which is just for water systems. Again, this would be a great application for that. That's due in June of every year. The caveat with that one is you have to have full plan specs and permits done. So well, CDBG does too. So you have to have the engineering done and the plans done before you even submit the grant. That wasn't the way it was. Doesn't mean it's extra cost, doesn't mean anything, just the costs are ahead of, you're paying for this engineering before you even know if you get the money. So it's not wasted, it's just the timing of the cost of the project. That one you'll find out in October of any year. And that could be up to 50 to 60% grant, 30, 40% low interest loan. The loan right now is 2.2% interest, locked in for 20 years. There's no refinance, something, it's the best loan in the game. The third eligible grant program that I deal with, and then I'm who writes the grants, so my staff does the engineering, but review it, and I write the grants myself. I don't contract out. I'm the one that does it. USDA rural development. Right now, that's probably number 3 on a scale of 3. Okay. Good program. They haven't been funded as well from the federal government. You have to do quite a bit of work up front just in order for them to possibly get you grant money. And you might get 25% grant, 75% loan. That loan's 4.5% to 5% interest, maybe 4% by the time we apply, but not as good as the DNR ones. Those programs that I've talked about, our firm has gotten about $95 million in grant monies, not loan interest loan, just grant monies for communities in the last 3 years in Southwest Wisconsin. It's not counting the communities that work in Iowa, just in southern Wisconsin, about 95 million in grants. There's a lot of grant money out there, but it's very competitive. It's getting more and more competitive. Yes, sir.
Are the grant rules such that you can go after several in parallel?
Yes. So a lot of communities like Muscadet, for example, I've got a couple of their projects funded 100% in grant. So we max out the CDBG, say for $1 million. And let's just say it's $1.5 million project. So $1 million, we get that. You guys got to come with 500,000. Then I take that 500,000, I go to DNR. We get 250,000 of that in DNR grant. The other 250,000 on interest loan. So at the end of the day, you come up with nothing out of your pockets. You pay a $250,000 loan for 20 years at 2%.
And that's the direction you'd recommend that we go after
Yep.
parallel?
Yep. The whole key is I just got to get you eligible. And a lot of the times I don't control your eligibility. It's based off of incomes and stuff that I don't control. But if I can get you eligible, then I'll write the grant. Yes, sir.
When we met previously, you said option 5 was like 602,000 basically, and now it's 947. I guess I'm wondering what was the change then?
So don't look at the present worth, Mark, look at the capital cost. So previously, as in like last week, even previously, it was 475,000. That's what's in your packets. But again, what we added, because Chad was thinking to move the reservoirs closer, so now I had to add in this piping here. And then I found out about, he doesn't even have an electrical system, so I added that in this morning. So that's the difference.
Okay. Oh, it's a big difference.
Yeah, well, and again, it's all relative. You're just comparing the different options analysis wise. I wouldn't get caught up because if I come back here in 3 months, those numbers could change slightly. But the key is it's not an $8 million job.
Right.
It's more like 800,000.
Yeah. Keith, what?
I don't feel ready to make a choice between the options, but I was wondering if it's possible to get the backup to these numbers. But whatever the assumptions you've made and what calculations you have done. Sure. Okay.
Committee thoughts? Mr. Cooley?
Well, towards going on the city for multiple reasons. I don't want to be in the water business, and I don't think we should be, but Carrie made a valid point.
Yeah.
This area in the farmland that is farmland today may not always be farmland, and the farther that works, that water main works its way out. You know, we have a housing problem now. And that's, you can see some growth there, whether it's across from equity or it works its way back on RC. To me, I think that, and I wasn't even thinking of that, I just didn't want to be in water. Is what it come down to for me. I didn't want to deal with that, but, the point that Carrie made sticks pretty hard. To me, that makes a lot of sense. And now the money's the same. End of the day.
Yeah, my concern would be is even 12-inch in the future, do they go any bigger than that? Say if there's a big subdivision going out there.
60 inch. Yeah, I mean, down in Houston, 60 inch. Yeah.
Okay,
The 12 inches could be more than adequate. We work in 90+ communities throughout Wisconsin and Iowa. And I would say that the biggest water main I've dealt with personally in those communities is maybe 18 inch. Like even Dubuque, Iowa has like 24 inch, like that's the biggest.
Yeah.
So it's all about the elevation, because if you're lower in elevation, you're gaining pressure just by geography.
Yeah.
If you're higher on the hill, you lose pressure. So now you gotta try to make it up. And that's one thing. And the other thing is whether you're looped. In this case here, you wouldn't be looped. You're gonna be a dead end. But someday, if that ever happened, who knows, you know, over by where the gentleman lived, that could be looped back intervention center somehow.
what do you think, group? Have them bring back a little bit more,
More information. Also, how many, we talked about this Legionellas testing, I guess, any sense of what that would cost us on an annual basis? Just an
That's
estimate.
$1,000. If it's $1,000 a month, that's
It all depends on the city and what they plan on for construction.
Right.
because,
We would so about weekly.
go ahead, Ingrid.
Just curious if there's other, I'm sure there's other skilled nursing facilities in bigger municipalities who are connected to water mains. So I guess I would be curious to see, I mean, is that truly the expectation?
Yes.
And how do they? Yeah, I guess just more information. I don't know if there's any cost.
Brittany, you were at Black Earth, so anytime they worked on the water lines in Black Earth,
We changed it to weekly. So essentially what happens is those pipes, we don't clean them. So Legionellas can just form, even in-house at Columbus, when I was contracted there, they actually had a positive Legionellas test due to construction. And then it just kind of breaking away from the pipes in the laundry room because they had to change the main itself, like the main water supply area where you turn the valve on and take in a water collection source from there, tested positive. It's basically, we can't control what's in the pipes. We can't clean them. We can't disinfect them. We can't, and it's usually right where the connectors sit. That's where Legionella likes to sit. And then so when the banging hits or anything like that, it breaks up and then goes right into your water system. So typically when there is construction with that availability, we increase it to about once a week because it is a very, very, very deadly virus that our residents can get. And since we do use humidifiers, we'd have to probably change that to a distilled water at that point. And then just we have to be cautious of drinking, shower, steam, things like that. And then there's a lot of recommendations that come from Legionellas because if it ever popped up positive, then there's a whole slew of things that we have to do following a positive testing. So there's a lot that goes into it that we have to be very cautious when hooking up to a city line. I'm not saying that you can't do it because lots of facilities do it. It's just there's a lot of extra care that goes into it.
Sure, comment?
Sounds like we still have a few questions we'd like to get answered, so since we have time before the county board meets next.
One other thing I wanted to mention, if we hook up to the city water, we don't have the room. So we'd have to put a little addition on, so to speak, when I talked to Steve Kruger, he said we need almost 8 feet between the meter, backflow preventer and everything else. And we have 0 room So we'd have to add on just a little bit of a room of some sort for the water would come in and out.
And I can also touch base with DSPS, Steve Kishmore, who is the life safety director, and get the recommendations and what is required when hooking up to city water. Because we will have to get permits and stuff just from the state of Wisconsin, so we can follow the regulation requirements as well.
Well, that's all more information we as a group would like to see. Mr. Severson?
Just to add on to some more information, I'm not
Nope.
negative for anything, I'm just saying, maybe there's a cost sharing incentive with the City of Richland Center for Future Expansion, and maybe they'll be willing to help with water, line access, and getting your stuff, because it could benefit them and our citizens, our residents.
So when I talked to Richland Center about that, they said, because I asked them, I said, would you guys go halves with us if we did that? And he said, no, you guys foot the bill, and if anything develops in the, say, the next 10 to 15 years, they pay us to hook up. They pay a percentage of what it was.
So, but Mr. Chair, if I could add on to this, that's city utilities. They can't pretty well verse in some of the things regarding this, but city utilities can't just up and put in water main, put in sewer, do whatever for future expansion. City government can.
Right.
That city council that's over there, they can put the money over, pay city utilities to put that infrastructure in. So they would have to go through their budgeting cycle and put the cost in. But he's correct, city utilities cannot do that, legally can't.
So when you were saying that information you just gave was directly from city utilities?
Yeah. So when Walmart came to town, Walmart had to foot the bill for the water and the sewer. And when, like the bank and Culvers and everybody else hooked up, they paid Walmart so much, I don't know, no numbers or nothing. They paid them a percentage because they foot the bill.
So what I'm saying is like maybe we could go halves from Walmart area to Pine Valley Middle, wherever that cutoff's gonna be, halves with Richland Center, because eventually they'll be able to attach from there and draw that water line out wherever.
But
And we would have to pay for our half going from Pine Valley to the road.
So there's a reason I gave you option 1 and 2. Option 2 is about 100,000 less than 1, right? So what your negotiation standpoint is City of Richland Center, if you want to run 12-inch out there or make us run 12-inch out there, that's fine. But we, as a county, only need 8-inch. So you pay the difference. And that's where your bargaining power is. And then everything else that Chad said is correct, is that if and when, it's called a deferred assessment, back in the 80s, they used to do this. It's a pain in the, you know what, administratively. Someone's got to stick around for 20 years and keep track of that. And how many people are sticking around for 20 years in those positions? We all know. So what happens is 18 years from now, someone moves in and connects onto your main. Who the hell is going to remember that they should get charged $16,000 to connect to your main? It's an administrative nightmare. But what can happen is they cannot change the rates for you compared to anyone else. But they can actually allocate money, whether it's 100,000 difference or some amount different, because again, like the gentleman said, the city is the one who actually is paying for it through utility. They can work out the details in between. It doesn't matter. The key is that's your negotiating power, is you don't need 12-inch to satisfy your system. You don't need 6-inch, then I would say that would be even more difference. Does that make sense?
so you got enough information between Brittany, Chad, and Bart?
Well, I don't know what else I have to bring. I mean, I can send the email with the calculations on how I come up with the numbers. I don't know if anybody might ever understand them, but that isn't gonna make any difference on what the numbers here are.
Right.
I mean, these are the numbers.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you want me to go into full design and start designing it and come up with more specific costs, I can do that, but I can't. I don't think you're there yet.
No.
Because you haven't even selected an option, so why waste money for me to go out and start surveying and doing 5 options of engineering?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a waste of my time and your money.
Sure. Yes, sir.
Maybe it might also be appropriate for us to have a conversation with the city administrator to administrator and just see where they might be.
Yeah, because I've talked to Steve, Chad's talked to Steve, they are more than willing, they want to work with you administratively. I agree, I haven't talked to them. But that's because I want to talk to my client, you first.
Yep.
If you say, no way in hell are we going with the city, well then obviously I don't want to waste my time.
No, I agree with Carrie. Thank you for those comments, Carrie. I think, is there any specific questions other than one Steve asked that anybody else on the committee would like? Otherwise,
We
Jeff,
got some information from those guys.
on the disease?
That and what was the thing?
The TSPS,
Yeah.
the requirements for building.
Yep. Permit costs and a few of them things. Chad, get a hold of somebody, because is that gonna require, I mean, you showed me where the city water would come in on the backside there. Gonna have to build a doghouse or something there, but that, on that building's gonna require engineer.
Sanitation tanks too. So as they're coming in, there has to be a form of disinfectant, tanks that they would go into before coming into the building as well.
So I feel like that's going to possibly add some significant costs onto our estimates.
Right, which I think if we can,
When I talked to the city, the engineering firm they were working with came up with 1.25 million to hook up to them.
You mean as the total number?
So option one, basically.
One,
Basically option one, but it's a lot higher.
that'd be $400,000 extra. That would be good to know.
okay. You guys got your homework?
So I'll just send that stuff to Trish, then he'll distribute it.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Bart.
So then,
We should have an answer hopefully in our first meeting in, what month are we in? We're in June?
right, so originally, Trish had said here, and then the next potential meeting would be the county board at the third Tuesday of July. So is that still how you want to approach it, or take a step back here?
There's another finance and.
We have, this group meets again before county board, the week before.
Okay, the week before.
Yeah,
So do you
we'll get you a date.
do you need me to attend?
July 8th. July 8th.
I have Amy.
You join
Necessarily
via
need
Zoom.
him for that.
No, I don't think we meet that night, but if you put us down for the full county
What
board,
time, you meet at 5?
because you really won't have any more information for us.
Well, biggest thing is if throw on some money towards the little building and then these disinfection things, I mean, I could possibly update the cost based off of their response,
Yeah.
what they find, but.
And that could be just in paper form.
well,
You wouldn't have to-
I'm just gonna add it to here, Steve.
Yep.
But yeah, 5 o'clock though on July 8th. Yeah, right now I would say I probably couldn't, but if I'm in Muscadet and Lone Rock, I could go here, then there, and then to Marquette, so.
Perfect. We spent enough time on that.
Well, thank you, everyone. Great questions. Hopefully it was informative. Probably know more about water systems.
Don't be afraid to wait out in the rain for me for that check.
I won't wait long. Thanks again,
I already
everyone.
got your money. Good.
All right, one more item. Discussion of possible action, corporate council structure for our 2026 budget year going forward.
So I just wanted to bring it to the committee before I do any work either way, to get input on which structure you guys want for corporation council for next year. I know last year there was some discussion about bringing it in-house. It was determined to continue it contracted. I did gather up some information on the hours, the dollar amounts that we spend. So right now between Assistant Corporation Counsel, Assistant District Attorney Amy Forehand, and the amount of money that we spend to App Swain, we're spending about $115,000 per year. A full-time corporation counsel would cost approximately $150,000. So there would be a pretty significant added expense to us if we went with in-house. Things that I would see as beneficial of bringing it in-house is there are projects that are on the table that are delayed in getting done. So some examples are termination of parental rights or youth guardianship. So over across the street at HHS, there are some cases that are ready to either proceed towards termination or proceed to completing a guardianship because of the lack of time between either of the two attorneys. Those are on hold. That does add more time onto the social workers across the street and added expenses for the placement costs. The position would also be able to complete some written documentation. An example is I know that there was a recommendation to create an ethics policy for employees. That hasn't been done yet. Committee bylaws, like the possible restructure of the JAC, they would need to create committee bylaws. Also just kind of timely completion of outstanding issues. There's a couple of tax deeds that we have outstanding right now. There's an eviction that's outstanding, and then that building part to the ambulance building that was purchased, that we ordered the wrong one or the designer ordered the wrong piece. There still hasn't been resolution in regards to that. So those are things that are out there that aren't being taken care of. Also concerns with just public record request, open records request. We've been getting probably 4 different requests from the sunlight reports, but now we're getting told to really make sure you're consulting with your corporation counsel because there are some concerns. Is that more of a phishing? Are they out to gather information to use against us? Are they legitimate? So there has to be more research in regards to that. I do feel that right now, our corporation counsel is putting out fires. That's all they're doing. And I don't really see that they have the ability to be proactive. But like Jennifer talked about beforehand, if we bring it in-house, that leaves her office in a position where she might have a hard time maintaining a full-time assistant district attorney. So ahead.
Maybe I don't understand myself first, but if we brought it in-house, could we still leave that 20% there?
We certainly could. There would just be that expense that would have to continue. And there would be some benefits to doing that because then we would have backup corporation counsel. So we would have.
And these 2 areas of law seem so disparate, I don't know if one person could do it.
May I make a comment? I got pointed on, but not by the chair.
No, you're good.
I think there would be a benefit. The issue always comes to cost, right? But there would be a logistical benefit to still having an assistant DA. She's paid for 8 hours a week, in addition to a full-time corporation counsel who's working on projects, who's working on bigger things. But as our administrator knows, there are things that have very short time spans. Temporary physical custody of children, that has to be done within a number of hours, 24 hours. Mental commitments have to be done within 72 hours. So there are things that come up very, very quickly that I think would be difficult for an in-house counsel not to do because the law is hard. But if you're in a meeting working on the contract negotiations with the sheriff's department, it's hard to pop out and deal with a kid who's been taken out of someone's home. So I think that there would still be a legitimate reason to have them.
Mr. Gill.
Yeah, I guess I have a question with the write-up. It says that we utilize Amy for 60 hours per month, but she's contracted to 8 hours per week. So I'm not, are we paying her for?
No, she's donating.
She's doing all of this extra basically.
Yes.
So wow, that's a lot. And then it says we are currently utilizing 67% of the hours each month. What does that mean exactly?
So what I did was took the number of hours, if you look at the attachment that is in there, I took the number of hours that we currently pay Apton Swain, added Amy's hours to that, calculated it as 172 hours of work per month on average, to come up with that amount. Because I know there was discussion in the past, is there work there? How much work do they do? Is there work there to have a full-time corporation? So I really wanted to take a look at what are we currently getting for, instead of a full-time, we're actually having like a 3/4 staff right now for corporations.
Mr. Cooey, go ahead.
So if we need more work or if we need more help, can't we just have it work more?
And that's one of the things that Attorney Wendell really feels we need to bid this out. If we are going to keep it contracted, then yes, I think we need to bid for more. I think we are doing a disservice to Amy with the amount of work that she has to do or that she's expected to do. And we're not doing a great job of it. So that would be something if we went to bid, that we would have to bid in more hours. Yes.
Because this is, so 56 is the allotted hours per month we have.
I don't think,
What's the contract now, I guess would be my
I think
question.
it's for whatever we need.
So then,
He doesn't have the bandwidth to do more
He
for
doesn't,
us.
because he's doing the center.
see, I understand that, but it's the firm.
Yep.
We're contracted with the firm, not the person.
Right.
So all we gotta do is ask the firm for more help, right?
And we could do that.
Mr. Gill.
I think it's just a typo, but down here in the financials, I think you need 80
$88,000 a year.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Further questions, comments? Concerns? What direction do we want to give to our administrator? Mr. Cooley?
Is there any concern with us having corporate counsel as paid staff?
That being a
So
concern
if we
with
get
us.
into any trouble where we gotta go get a different attorney because corporate counsel's already, you know what I mean? Is there something, and Jennifer, maybe you can answer that better than anybody could. If corporate counsel works for us as a county employee, does that affect us in some areas?
Representing, say, a county employee versus.
Yeah, some.
Right, there's always gonna be some kind of issue with that if they work for either the county or they work in a firm, if they have two different things going on. So that could always be a concern whether or not they're in-house or out-of-house. I will say if you have an in-house corporation counsel, you're really not getting a full-time lawyer, you're getting you're getting a part-time lawyer and a part-time secretary, because there's no staff with this. So if I'm drafting my own paperwork, you're still paying me lawyer money.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you contract outwards, you're paying the lawyer money, not the lawyer money for doing secretarial.
Understood.
Mr. Severson?
Statutorily, corporation counsel is listed out and it gives the, I guess his workload or what he's legally required to do. We have that. What, in my past 9 years being on this board, me and Dave, been a little bit more, Steve and I know the same. We've always had another attorney, who was John Anderson, and we've used him in the past for our labor issues, other than corporation counsel for other things. We've always had that. The last few years, I don't think that we've utilized his services as much, but there's that option also that we've always had, other than corporation counsel. He's got his step duties that he needs to do. But when there is that conflict that Mr. Huey's talking about, we've always had that other attorney that was independent from him.
And John typically took care of all the labor stuff.
Yep.
That's what we always called it. The only thing I'd say is if we need more work to get done, we're still about 40 grand shy of what it would cost for a full-time person. The only other thing I would say is when you're contracted, if you don't need the work, you don't pay the bill, right? So.
I know there's work
Not
that's.
everybody remembers this, but, you know, we just went through a bunch of raises, a bunch of stuff in a budget that's gonna come up. And I'm just fearful that we don't have money in the budget for another position. That's the other comment I'd make to that. Unless we're gonna get another windfall from the state, which I don't see.
Mr. Gill?
Is it possible to bring a paralegal in to do some of the legal work basically, or is that, so it's like the state, we're not using secretary?
I believe that I have the only legal, if I may, Mr.
Yeah.
Chairman. I have the only legal secretary who works for the county, because essentially my office is a law firm. And I think with salary and benefits, my legal secretary for our office is about $55,000 with salary and benefits. So I think if you do that, it just ups it's not now it's not $150,000 to get a full-time corporation counsel. You have that on top of it. So you can always hire more people, but.
What about contract bringing paralegal in? Is that a possibility?
Well, you get that, I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
Yeah, you get that when you hire a firm. So when you hire a firm, the attorney bills and then they bill what they bill, and incorporated in that is generally 33% of every billable hour goes towards overhead, right, of the firm, keeping the lights on, paying their secretaries, paying the insurance, those kind of things. So all of those things, overhead is incorporated into hourly rate when you're talking about contracting for outside counsel.
And when we get the bills from Apton Swain, it's broken down by hours of the attorney versus hours of the paralegal.
And the rate is not the same.
Correct.
Ingrid, go ahead.
If you want more hours, change our contract, but for right now, we're just saying, we pay them for what we utilize. What is our current bid?
I don't think the contract has a max number of hours. I think it's just.
Say that as needed, and
I think we would just need to be very clear when we bid it out that this is what we need a little bit more, because I think Captain Swain can't provide us what we need right now.
Okay, so we need to have an idea of how many hours we want per year. Can you provide this?
Yes.
Basically what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay. I think that would be reasonable to look at that prior to.
Well, I think, I don't know how much time. Contract ends in July, September, so we have a little bit of time. I think the administrator is gonna reach out and say, we would like, when Mike's not available, we want to make sure we have somebody that's available. If Mike is already telling us to bid it out because he's getting stretched too thin, then maybe they don't have anybody else. I guess it's a phone call, email away.
And that's fine.
Hopefully she can, administrator can bring us some more back on July 8th and see if we've got a little more information. We're good with that for now? Okay, you're good with that? All right. All right, we're done with that. Now we're gonna move into closed sessions. Item 8, the chair may entertain a motion to enter closed session pursuant to Wisconsin 19.851C. Employment, promotion, compensation, performance, evaluation data of any public employee over which the governing body has jurisdiction or exercise responsibility. We will be reviewing the situation in the ambulance services department. So allowed, our county board members. Motion by Mr. Manning, seconded by Mr. Carroll. All those in favor of going into closed section signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? All right.
A couple minute recess.
Yep, couple minute recess and Miranda, whatever you need from us.
Can I talk to you first and second, Mr. Chair? First by Manning?
Manning was first, second by Carroll.
And I'll get this.
Yep.
Yes.
Unanimous. So in closed, restroom break, and that other one starts at 7?
Yes.
Was unanimous to go to the restroom.
I don't know, but I think the weather forecasters were right for once. I think so. You back on? All right, we're back on. We're back in open session. I would entertain a motion that was discussed. We have some business to take care of that was in closed session. Motion to appoint our administrator as the acting director of the EMS services. Somebody would like to make that motion by Mr. Dave Turk.
Make that motion until such time as a contracted provider can be secured.
We'll get you the right wording.
Sorry, we didn't hear you.
What we're doing is appointing Trish as the acting EMS director, is that the example?
Service director.
Until such time as a contracted provider can be put in place. So somebody's there.
Okay.
We'll get the right wording to you, Miranda. Seconded by Mr. Cooey. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion as presented, signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. Any correspondence? No correspondence. Future agenda items, meeting on July 8th. Carol.
Look at our capital.
CIP, yep, I know our administrator is working on that, and remember, we'll be talking a little more about the Pine Valley water stuff coming up in July. There's no other ones, Mr. Manning. Motion by Manning to adjourn, seconded by Mr. Gill. All those in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye.
Aye.
What's that?
You have contact information, so we know how to get a hold of her immediately, starting today.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, 608-475.
Okay.
0009.
All
I
right.
did put it on your board last Friday when I stopped in there. I wrote the number down,
Okay.
but that's the number.
So we can use that as the chief's number to call 24 hours a day.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
Go ahead. I heard him on the radio.
The library and the senior center that are open and designated anyhow,
I don't know how many there are.
quite a few, and the courthouse is one of them, and it's done by emergency management. Since we don't have emergency management, there's nothing being done. And I'm concerned about our people in the neighborhood. I could care less about you people's
Yeah.
ego.
John is the emergency management. He's contracted.
With,
John Heinen.
get a hold of him then, because I've called him all weekend and today.
Don't know how they answer it. She'll take care of that, but, give this to you. Yeah.
Yes.
And I've got. Close that.